No. Oh, really? You probably, yep. You were from the oh, yeah.
I
So much crap.
Is it okay if open window, please?
Yeah, I guess.
Absence headache.
I'm not happy.
Did you put this?
Yes.
Okay.
Gonna get food in a second.
Is it actually? Yeah.
You all in? Excellent. So, week 3, very important stuff. I call this lecture Selfie in Society, but really this lecture is focused on visual culture. And the first thing I want to do today is ask you to all stand up. Okay. Now, what I would like you to do is turn to the person next to you.
Wait.
Are they?
I'm next to you.
Am I making this too complicated at this point? Okay. And I would like you to give that person a round of applause. And then look around the rest of you standing up and give everyone else a round of applause. Okay. And sit down. Now, this exercise illustrates 2 things, right? One, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Why would you just listen to somebody when they ask you to do that? Are you not aware of the dangers of conformity and obedience? Okay, 1. And 2, why did I ask you to do that? Can anyone posit any kind of guess as why I felt that was a necessary thing for you to do? I should note, I didn't ask any of you to give me a round of applause. Oh, it's okay. My ego's big enough already. Don't worry about it.
Is it because it's like selfies how we praise your appearance by like you getting content?
That is very, very smart, Jess. It's not the right answer, but it's extraordinarily smart, and I applaud you personally for coming up with that answer. That is deep. But that's not what I'm getting at. Okay. You are the most talented generation of photographers that have ever lived. You may not realise this, but you are. And that comes from 2 aspects of photography. The taking of photographs and the interpretation of photographic images. Your generation is the most talented at both of these aspects. Who can tell me, as an act of revision for a module that nearly all of you did last year, who can tell me when the first photograph was taken? That's right. MS-120, Media History. My fucking module. Who can tell me when the first photographic image was taken? It was in the fucking lecture. Well done, all of you. I'm going to go back and retrospectively fail your sorry asses for that module, because it was kind of important. You know, that's why I teach that stuff, so you have, oh yeah, first photographic image, yes, bang. There's something for you all to do.
Moving images of the horse.
No, that was the first moving. There's a clue in the title. So you needed to take the still images to get the moving image.
Portraits?
That's quite random. This is throwing random words out now. You can all go back and check and improve your knowledge of basic media. But the first moving image was in the 1880s. The first photographic image came a long time before then, but at the beginning of that century. The point I'm making is that there have been photographs around for around 220 years at this point. Photographic image has existed as a form for more than 2 centuries. However, can anyone tell me how many photographs were taken last year?
Billions?
Yeah, billions is a good guess. I'm not asking. If somebody knew the exact number, I'd be really like, holy shit. this person has seen autism and decided to double down on it in a big way. So, you don't know the answer to this question, but let me put it in this context. If you added up every photographic image ever taken up to the year 2010, that means from the first photograph taken all the way up to 2020, add them all together, there were more photographs taken last year than all of those combined. And that has been a trend that has been going on since around about 2010 itself. Can anyone tell me why? Something happened in 2010.
I was going to say there's more access to photographic devices.
One, more access to photographic devices. Since 2004 or so, most people have been carrying around something in their pocket which has a digital camera attached to it. So that is a very, very important point. Two, something specific happens in 2010.
Instagram?
Instagram is founded in 2010, indeed. It is bought by Facebook in 2012, but it is founded in 2010. The first major image sharing platform with social features built in. Image sharing platforms existed before 2010. Some of them are still around today. You might, I don't know why you would come across this, but Flickr, for example, was one of the first major sharing platforms. That existed before 2010. But it didn't have social features built in it. You generated links and you posted them to something, or you embedded them on a website, something like that. It wasn't network focused. Instagram came along in 2010 and changed all that by taking the features of social media and combining them with a purely image-based aesthetic and image-based function. And since 2010, so we're talking in the 13 years intervening, visual communication has become the predominant mode of communication via social media. Prior to 2010, social media was a lot like the rest of the web. Most communication still took the form of the written word. You made posts of some kind. You could augment those with images by all means, but primary communication was through that written form of communication. Instagram changed the paradigm for social communications entirely, and we now exist in a predominantly visual communicative mode on social media. This is extremely important to understand. Not only has there been a paradigm shift towards the visual, but that means that your practices of use of social media will all involve some kind of image manipulation and presentation through image. And the reason why I focus on Selfie here is not because I am particularly interested in people who do this all day. Selfie refers to self-representation. How we represent ourselves on social media. And the primary form of doing that is visual. That doesn't necessarily mean we use images of ourselves, but we represent ourselves in visual ways. For example, I have an Instagram account, and there is not one image of me on that account. Indeed, to my knowledge, there is not an image of me on Instagram at all. But I represent myself visually on Instagram. My practices of use of Instagram are a form of self-representation. My occlusion of images of my own face is a deliberate ploy to represent myself in a particular way. I'm doing this, I'm purposefully doing this to create a particular identity and to create a particular image of myself, ironically without images. Yeah? But with images of other stuff. This is all deliberate. These are my self-presentation strategies on social media. I don't have myself as part of that. So the lecture today is going to focus on what does the visual turn mean, and how does this reflect on our own practices of self-representation. And self-representation should be a core aspect of pretty much every project. Because if you look at what I have asked you to do, I've asked you to analyse your own social media use, then to some extent you will have to reflect on how yourself is presented in particular ways. Even if that's, well, I go on Reddit, but I only read stuff, I only read stuff about how incels, mansplain anime to cam whores. Now, if that's your project, you're in big trouble, because that's the most boring thing I've ever heard in my life. But to some extent, you are trying to describe self-representation at that point as well. That your self-representation, I suspect you need urgent psychological help if you have anything going on like that, but there is an aspect of self-representation in it. So, we are going to understand the primary importance of visual communication in culture and social networking. Define what a selfie is. It is not what you're thinking. Conceptualize the selfie as grounded in the theory of Irving Goffman and other sociological theorists. Identify and understand the range of comms possible through the selfie in visual culture, and critically evaluate the reasons why selfies become a salient form of communication. All of this should, at some point, feed into what you are doing. You may well ask, why are we doing this? Every day, Facebook users upload 350 million photos to that platform. Instagrammers share 95 million photos, and 3 billion snaps are taken and shared every day. Does anyone want to do any maths for me? How many snaps a year? There are 3 billion taken per day. There are 365 days in a year. I'll look at you all rushing.
1/2 trillion.
It is just over 1.2 trillion images per year on Snapchat. Snaps shared. That's a lot. Does anyone know what the population of the planet is? About 8 billion. Excellent. So we exceed the number of people on the planet in snaps in less than 3 days. And that's every 3 days. And it goes up. Even though Snapchat use apparently is going down, actually it's not. In terms of quantity, it's going up. So, not every image is a selfie, but selfies have come seen as the bane and boom of internet-mediated visual practices. And these are therefore not marginal practices. These are primary practices of social media use. They are a dominant mode of communication about the self. Now, all of us take what we classically think of as a selfie. The classic image of the selfie, as I beautifully illustrated just now, is you hold the phone up and do that. Or, more accurately today, you go to B&M Bargains and buy a ring light. Then you put the ring light somewhere in your room, you spend 25 minutes trying to make yourself look presentable, you take about 40 images using it, you look at them all, you think, they're shit, you don't post anything. And then you do the same the next day. And the next day, and the next day after that. That is a very common way of doing things. This is not the only form of self-representation through image, but it is a predominant one. And this has become a dominant mode of communication. So, why is Instagram important in this? Well, Instagram shapes what we do. Instagram as a platform shapes how we self-represent ourselves. You might think, okay, unpack this for me, because I'm one of these people who doesn't use Instagram. So, you're weird. Is there anyone in this room who doesn't have an Instagram account? Good. Okay. I didn't expect there to be. Instagram gives us what we call, in theoretical terms, affordances. Affordances is a psychological term that comes from the American psychologist J.J. Gibson, who was writing in the 1970s. And what Gibson argued is that human activity, to an extent, is shaped by the kinds of tools that we have and what they allow us to do. So Instagram allows us to do certain things. One of the things that it's done since its outset has allowed us to alter the image that we take with our smartphone. So it's a smartphone app, you take an image, you upload it onto their platform, and then Instagram gives you affordances to make changes to that image. This has become a normative way of representing ourselves thanks to what this platform allows us to do. It is not a case that we take an image and shove it up like so. Indeed, the no filter hashtag, you're familiar? No filter? As a way of representing oneself. This is a no filter image of me. That in itself is a misnomer because the software on your phone corrects the image for you anyway. So if you have an iPhone, or like me, for example, I've got the beast of all of this, I've got a Google Pixel, every photo looks great. I'm shit at taking photographs. I'm absolutely dreadful. This phone makes every photograph I take look amazing. It's like, I'm not good at taking photos. The software on this phone corrects how bad I am. And most phones do the same. So, it's not just Instagram, but Instagram as an example of where this began is very, very important. Instagram immediately allowed people the chance to alter and change their self-representation. This leads to social norms about presentation of yourself. So as a platform, Instagram developed a set of aesthetic rules for self-presentation, which we can meet, or we can decide not to meet, and indeed no filter is an attempt to try and sit outside those rules in some way. That only goes to emphasize that the platform itself is that important, that you have to indicate that, look, I'm not doing what the platform does. I'm still within the realm of it. Basically, Instagram as an application gave us a template of how to create images, and how to create images of ourselves, important. And now, we live our lives by that template. Who has been to a restaurant because it was Insta-worthy? Thank you so much, you three people, for actually being honest. Now, can the rest of you park your fucking gigantic egos for 1 second and answer the question? Who has been to a restaurant or somewhere else that was Insta-worthy? And you have taken an image to post on Insta. You fucking liars. Look at you all there basking in your self-righteousness. It's like, yeah, I would never do that. I'm authentic. Fuck you. Liar. Total lies.
I feel like most restaurants would deliver themselves.
Okay, while everyone sort of has a chat about how egotistical they are, say that again?
I feel like most restaurants would deliberately design themselves to be Insta-worthy.
Take a note, because that is true. You've preempted exactly what I was going to say. It is not just your practices of behaviour, which most of you refuse to admit, all right? Because, I don't know, you're trying to hang on to the vestiges of having some kind of life where you have agency. But what is more important than that is that venues, places, pubs, clubs, restaurants, event spaces, sports stadiums, cinemas, etc., have all adjusted to this culture. They will now give you space to express this kind of need, and indeed give you products which encourage you to express this kind of need. Presentation of food, for example, has transformed completely because people feel the need to share it on Instagram. Now, if you're a restaurant owner and somebody like shares and you go share, that's not going to reflect well on you. So what do? You make it look nice, right? You make it look presentable. You change the very practices of your business to reflect the changes in this. So the material world around us has adjusted in order to do this. Swansea University is no different. There's branding everywhere now. All the buildings have got like branding on them. It's like, why? Why do you need to be told everywhere that this is Swansea University? It's fucking obvious. It's the campus. How is it not going to be? Well, the university is cognizant of the fact that people will take images outside of buildings and therefore will have branding statements on top of them. We do this all over the place. People will come for open days and they will see, did anyone come to an open day here? Can you show some hands, please? Cool. Wasn't it kind of weird that they needed to tell you that this was Swansea University every 5 yards? That literally was like, so this is Swansea University, Swansea University, Swansea University. No shit, Sherlock. That's in the city. It's a university in this city. I could have worked that out for myself. If you're coming to university and need to be told, you know, maybe university's not for you. If you need to be reinforced all the time with this image. University is responding to a need that people have to take images of themselves in particular places. Very, very straightforward. The university's aesthetic has transformed because of this. Not so much on this campus, which is old and 60s and a bit crap, to be honest. I'm a bit tired. But if you go down the other campus, the one that isn't even in the county of Swansea, there are all sorts of Insta-worthy entrances to buildings, deliberately created by architects for that purpose, including the ridiculously termed Great Hall, where you will all be going next summer, not this summer coming up, but next summer. Why will you be going there? Very good. You will be going there for graduation. And when you go there for graduation and you get your gown and your cap, and you will go in front of the building and you can have those nice pillars around you which have been positioned there deliberately so that people who get their gowns and caps can stand there and have their little photograph to go on Instagram with all this shit around them. Deliberate design doesn't serve any purpose apart from every summer we're going to have graduations here, and this is where we can have people to, you know, take their images for Instagram. And on top of that, what then does the university put around those things? Well, it licenses that space to vendors. So if you get really hungry after your Instagram thing, you can buy like a burger or something. You think, oh my God, Leighton, you're so cynical. Is that? Not really, because I go there every summer for its graduation. I see this happen, right? So, material world is now considered, in terms of being Insta-worthy or not, a redesign of our practices in entirety. When we think of Instagram then, it is not just one thing. It is a whole group of things which has transformed the world around us. It is an app, a program, an algorithm, a database of images, video, captions, comments, geolocation tags, likes, emojis, personal data, APIs, decisions by owners, designers, programmers, ideologies, and our understanding of these things. To say that Instagram is an app that we use is to misunderstand how deeply rooted it has become in culture and how many things that it does as well. And what it can actually do for us. The database of images is really, really important here because one of my primary uses of Instagram is to look at tattoos, right, and get ideas that I have for covering my body in tattoos. That's just one of the things I do. Okay. So I search for hashtag whatever Simpsons and tattoos, right? And all the Simpsons tattoos come up, or have been tagged with those things. So there is a database of images out there that I can search in order to find particular things. At the same time, there is a database of images about ourselves. From when you started using Instagram to the contemporary day, you will have a database of images about yourself. Instagram works as a visual compendium of yourself over time. It works as a way to keep track of ourselves visually, to go back and look at events, things, etc. that we have done. Instagram didn't invent photo sharing, as I said earlier. When it was bought, it was 18 months old, only had 13 employees at the time, and had 30 million users, and it was only an iPhone app. It didn't exist on Android. Facebook bought it for two reasons. One, it had a database of images which they wanted to use. Facebook buys data from other companies. And two, it had an image. And as a kind of meta thing, say Instagram had an image, yeah, it had a shit ton of images. It had a corporate image. Instagram's corporate image was not like Facebook. Even by 2012, Facebook was in a lot of trouble. People were thinking Facebook is wrong, Facebook is evil. A lot of academics were saying Facebook is a really bad thing. Instagram did not have this problem. Nobody thought Instagram was nasty. And that image has kind of persisted to this day. Instagram is kind of seen as nice and, you know, not so bad. I don't really know how that image has persisted to this day, because Instagram's, for me, the most toxic social media application there is, and the very worst social media application there is. But it still maintains this kind of image that it's, you know, yeah, I know it's owned by Facebook, but it's Instagram. It's okay. I'm going to overlook, you know, the rampant data sharing. I'm going to overlook the threats to democracy and privacy. I'm going to overlook the fact that, you know, they're using it as a commodity because Instagram's cool. I don't know where that comes from. Instagram is the same company. Instagram has the same practices. And as I said, and what I'll go on to outline, I think Instagram is actually way worse than any of the other applications for what it actually does. Why is it seen this way? Well, Instagram is actually more flexible on real name policy. Real name policy is a Facebook policy that says that everyone who has an account must use a real name. This is really, really problematic for a few reasons. One, people often don't want to use their real name when they're online. There are a number of reasons to do this, but there are also very, very important safety reasons why people will not want to do this. For example, if you're in some kind of program fleeing domestic violence, I can see why it's a really, really good idea that you don't use your real name on a social media account, because if you do use your real name, then you are searchable by people, and that could mean you're searchable by the person who has been committing domestic violence against you, for example. Facebook enforces its real name policy with a great zeal. For the last number of years, Facebook has been criticised by the trans community for enforcing dead naming in particular ways, because you know, they have this real name policy. The reason why Facebook have a real name policy is they tie names to identities to advertising profiles. Now, Instagram has more flexibility to this. The way the Instagram app is built means that there is a little bit more flexibility with it. It also allows Instagram's private accounts, which is not allowed elsewhere, and therefore allows us the idea that we can post something which is more authentic and accommodating. And what I've said here is that something called multiple backstages, but I will come back to what that means later in the lecture. So there is more flexibility in Instagram than in other applications. In reality, it is a data-driven advertising platform, and that's it. That's its function. That is what it does. That is how it makes a huge amount of money. It takes data from users and sells that data. And here's where people really start to get freaked out. So, I'm on Instagram, right? I'm scrolling, and I stop. Why have I stopped? Why would I stop scrolling?
Something interesting.
Something interesting. I've seen something, right? I've seen something. It's kind of cool. Stop there. What does the application do? How? That is the point. Never mind clicking on links. The application will measure how long I stop for and on what. So the application will categorize each post, and then if I stop on it, it will measure for how long. It will measure that time against other times that I have stopped scrolling. Because in doing that, it is building up an image in its databases, a description of what my optimal attention span is for an image. It will look for how long I've spent looking at this image, and will assess whether that fits within my paradigm of attention. And if it does, it will take the metadata and the topics associated with that image and recycle them using algorithms into content which will then be pushed to me in order to get me to consume, because clearly I am interested in this thing. That, my friends, is how Instagram works. It's not just a case of, oh, you scroll through and you click on things. It is measuring how long you look at something against how long you and other people look at things in order to make a hyper-efficient tool for selling you products and services. That is the reality of what Instagram does. So, in order to make this more efficient in 2016, it changed from a chronological timeline, which you can still flip back to if you know how to do it, into an algorithmically sorted timeline in order to support this function. In order to make the platform better, it switched to algorithms in 2016. That means you don't have control over what's presented, the algorithm controls what is presented to you in order to sell most efficiently. Instagram rejects some content based on its advertisers and why those advertisers want to advertise on that platform. So if you get content which is turned down, has anyone ever been in a position where they've had a post rejected? No? I have. If that happens, it's because it does not meet the guidelines that advertisers want the app to follow. Instagram will make a lot of bullshit about community guidelines, but those community guidelines are derived from their relationships with advertisers. Instagram steals things. It stole stories from Snapchat. The time Facebook was involved in conversations with Snapchat about buying Snapchat as an application, people in Snapchat wanted too much money. So Facebook stopped those discussions and decided, well, we're just going to fucking steal your idea anyway. Because this is how Facebook works as a company. It either buys the thing, or if the company turns them down, it says, well, we're just going to steal it. They did this with Twitter, they've done it with Snapchat, they've done it with a bunch of other companies.
They had a lawsuit against them?
Who's going to sue Facebook? Who's going to sue a company worth billions per year? I mean, good luck. Probably not going to win. It's now a research and development tool. Instagram is a research and development tool. You, as academics, can develop an account on Facebook, which allow on Instagram, which will allow you to use it for research and development, if you so wish. To have access to some of the back-end features of Instagram. In this sense, a lot of companies in 2016 were using Instagram as a research and development tool to target individual voters during elections. One in the Brexit election in this country, the Brexit referendum, and the US presidential election, which returned Donald Trump as president in 2016. There was a lot of evidence that companies were using Instagram as a tool in order to target voters. Interestingly, the targeting on Instagram involved targeting mostly black voters in the United States to encourage them not to vote for Donald Trump, because that would have been a waste of time, but encouraging them not to vote at all. In that election in 2016, Hillary Clinton polled the most votes in that election and was the winner of the popular vote. But crucially, in districts in the United States where state elections were contingent on votes in those districts, The primary reason why Clinton did not win was because people who traditionally vote for the Democratic Party did not vote at all. It's not as if they voted for Trump. They just didn't vote. And that is what won the election at the end of the day. That is a tactic for accounts like Blackstagram, encouraging African American voters to not vote at all. Not to vote for Trump because that would be a waste of time, but just don't vote. That seemed to get through. I'm not suggesting it was the only cause. Instagram has been implicit in huge stories about harm and harm for users. Now, there are specific cases. Has anyone ever heard of Molly Russell? No? Wow.
I think I have.
Do you know anything about Molly Russell?
Is she the one that that died? Like, did she?
She did.
She killed herself, didn't she? Because
She
the
did.
stuff she was seeing on Instagram.
Well, as a contributing factor to her suicide, it was found that she was searching out and saving a huge amount of material on self-harm. Eventually, she self-harmed to the extent that it caused death. There's a contestation about whether that's a suicide or a death by misadventure, but it was clear that Molly Russell had suicidal thoughts, so you are conflating two things which are largely the same at that
And now
point.
her parents been campaigning to.
Indeed, yeah. The parents have been campaigning since 2017 to have Instagram to change its community guidelines in order for self-harm to be stopped, to not be visible on the platform. They have not been successful. There is a huge amount of self-harm content on Instagram. Can anyone tell me why it is not in Instagram's interest to remove self-harm posts?
Advertisers.
Advertisers are not always keen to advertise next to images of self-harm, unless you've got like advertising razor blades or something, I don't know. But yeah.
Because they just want engagement. It doesn't matter what Instagram
Exactly.
that you're engaging with.
Exactly, it doesn't matter what the engagement is for, as long as it generates traffic. This is something which advertisers interestingly have not flagged up as content which is harmful to their brands. It's probably not occurred to them that it would be. So sexually explicit imagery, okay, right, that's harmful to our brand. But self-harming stuff, doesn't even occur to them that anyone would associate it with their brand. So they don't include it in those conversations. Instagram looks at these things and thinks, well, it's driving traffic, it's driving engagement. We're not going to cut that stuff out. So it leaves it up there. How many other Molly Russells have there been since 2017 and indeed before 2017? Who knows? Difficult to say. I know there's been like more than one. Been a lot probably. Globally there's probably been many. Alice,
There was also the Blue Whale Challenge. I don't know if you know about it.
go on, explain.
It was basically this challenge which allured in like 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, and all these people would just join this weird like social media trend, which was that you would give your personal information to this. I don't know if it was an app or website. Where they would like kind of give you some steps where you follow different steps until you got to the point of killing yourself. And it was like listen to sad music one day. It started very light and then it got really, really like heavy. And then before killing yourself, you would take a selfie and then kind of like post it.
Mm-hmm.
And they would make it a trend. So everybody put the hashtag Blue Whale Challenge and it killed a lot of people. Not a lot of people, but
Killed about 50, 60 I think. Or at least 50 or 60 were associated with it.
yeah.
Whether you could say that was exact number is a difficult thing to ascertain. Yeah, these things pop up every now and again. And we haven't had one for a while, but
I mean,
it's a continual atmosphere on these services. Sorry, did I interrupt them?
I just wanted to say there have previously also been like a lot of cases where literally social media caused like people to kill themselves, like even before Instagram. I think it was with MySpace or something like that. A girl a while ago, she was basically supposedly best friends with another two girls, but somehow one of them became like very jealous of her and the other girl, you know, being best friends. And she started like bullying her with like her mother. She made a whole fake profile, you know, pretending to be a boy that had an interest in this girl, you know. And at the end, she basically pretended to, you know, break up with her.
Okay, this sounds an important thing, but that's about people.
Yeah, and it ended
This
up.
isn't about a social network allowing that content.
Yeah.
The big difference with Instagram is allowing self-harm content. Instagram is allowing, you call it Blue Moon hashtag, was that what it's called, Alice?
I think so, yeah.
So those ones from the early days of social media were much more about targeted cyberbullying,
Yeah.
which is also problematic on Instagram, by the way, because targeted cyberbullying does exist. But Instagram encourages particular content, encourages might be the wrong word, does not discourage, I think is the best way of saying it, so it's not like it is stamping down on this content. One thing I will also say, going back to that slide that I've just skipped through, one of the most frequent comments about Instagram in the popular media is that Instagram is a contributory factor to mental illness. And I'm sure you've all heard about this kind of ongoing debate about Instagram's influence in society, that Instagram is a contributing factor in cases of anxiety, social anxiety, stress, depression, conditions such as eating disorders, where Instagram has been implicated in these things. All of those things are complex. Instagram, is it a cause of those things? It is highly unlikely that it is ever a singular cause in any one of those complaints. But is it a contributory factor? Yeah. It is pretty clear that Instagram as a platform, and it's not the only social media platform like this, but it is pretty clear that as a platform, it is a contributory factor in a number of mental health conditions experienced particularly by young people of your generation and the generation ahead of you, and disproportionately towards female users. So there is, you know, when we talk about the harm of Instagram, there is a wider context to it as well. Now, there is a reason why I don't dwell too much on that material in this lecture or this course, and it is fairly clear why. Every year, it's not happened this year actually, weirdly, but thank God for that, but every year I usually get somebody who does a project proposal that says, I want to understand why Instagram makes people depressed. Why won't I let anyone do that as a project?
Because it makes you depressed.
One, it usually comes from people who are struggling with depression, and I don't want you to dwell in it, yeah?
The ethics around it.
The ethics around it is the big thing, yeah. In order to study any complex mental health issue, you need to go through a very, very detailed ethics proposal with the university, which takes months and months, and you have like 6 weeks to do your project in. So it's something which I have to absolutely avoid. In year 3, when people will be doing dissertations, many of you will do dissertations in year 3, people will again say, you know, I really want to look at Instagram and social anxiety amongst teenage girls. Well, that's lovely. You're not going to be doing that. It's not going to happen. One, social anxiety is a very complex issue, a complex mental health issue, which means that professionals in the mental health industry will look at it, not undergraduate students. And 2, teenage girls are a protected characteristic. You do not talk to people under the age of 18 because you can't get informed consent from people who aren't adults. So we don't let people do that.
But then how do psychology students target these things?
They don't. Psychology undergraduate students don't do that.
But that's fascinating because that's literally what you're studying basically.
Well, they might well be studying it, but they are not doing research with teenage girls
Yeah.
because the university will not allow them to do it.
Yeah.
Anyone who does research without ethical approval from the university does stand the risk of being thrown out of university. So, yeah, their lecturers might be doing it. That's a big difference.
Does they know how to?
Hmm?
Does they know how to approach it?
Well, they have to go through the standard procedures, which take months and months for the university to approve. So there is a reason, long story short, there's a reason why I don't dwell on it too much on this. So, Instagram as an aesthetic. Elisa Stefanelli, extensive use of Instagram represents the foundation of a new mobile visualities aesthetic. According to Elisa and her work, our use of Instagram as an entire culture that we are using Instagram has completely transformed our way of representing the world itself, whereas we now look for experiences and aesthetics which fit the demands of Instagram as a platform. So Instagram as a platform has developed particular norms around how things should be presented, and we now search out these things. Does anyone know what that building is? No? No? Fascinating. Fascinating. It's in this country.
Is it Cardiff? No. That's not like it is it?
No.
I mixed up with
Covered in shit if it was in Cardiff, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's that thing, Cardiff, I didn't know that.
It is the Titanic Museum in Belfast,
Oh, no.
which is in this country, for people who need a geography lesson. That is the Titanic Museum in the city of Belfast. One of the most Instagrammed buildings in the United Kingdom. That's the reason why I've used it as an image on the side here. The argument being that when the museum was opened in the early 2010s, to what extent that building's form represents the Titanic is very debatable. I also find it really weird that Belfast has a culture around a boat that fucking didn't make it one journey. I would not be proud of that.
I kind of see it.
You do? Well, half of it would have to be underwater, surely. With people jumping off it. You know.
It's just probably the bow with like the sharp triangle shape, but then again, many buildings have a triangle shape like that.
I mean, maybe it does. I don't really care that much, to be honest. But
Well,
my point of it is, it was designed in a particular way to facilitate people taking images for social media. The argument from the creators of the building were, this will be an image, this will be a place, there will be an attraction to be shared visually on social media. Specific design principles of this building were about having multiple angles where people can take attractive images for it. So, for example, the facade on this side leads to the hills in past the lock there, over the far side of the docks. So it was a design principle was made in order to make it the most, if you like, Instagrammable that it could be. And it's fair enough as well, because I've actually been to this museum. I had to go and get my passport renewed when I lived in Ireland, so I had to go to Belfast for the day. And it's a dump around it, but it's docks. I mean, you know, they're not aesthetically pleasing. This here is literally the dock in which the Titanic was made. So, you know, you are standing next to the point where it was actually constructed, and not constructed very well. That would be, this is a mystifying thing for me. Why would you have a museum for a boat that sunk, like, without even making one journey? It's like, Belfast is really proud of this boat. It's like, don't be. It fucked up in a big way, you know, it didn't get there. Lots of people died. The shape of this building has come, according to scholars like Stefanelli, from that sort of aesthetic principle of Instagram. Now, the built environment is a factor in how buildings take shape. If you want a better example of this locally, I don't know about better, but a salient example, we have a new arena in Swansea. I think it looks gomping. There's a proper Swansea word for you. But it has been built for that practice. It has, next to the main entrance, a gigantic plaza where people can stand and take images with that facade in the background. It has been, the visual construction of that entire area is to facilitate that kind of image taking. And it's got that ridiculous bridge as well, where you can stand in it and take, it looks like a crunchy with no chocolate. What the hell is going on? It's a horrible looking thing. It looks like somebody's been sick everywhere. I hate the city so much. So, Instagram is, according to Kat Tiedenberg, the application which mainstreamed the idea that editing should be the default for images before posting on social media. So, Christmas time, I go to Dubai, go and spend Christmas with my sister, who I haven't seen since before the pandemic, right? Nice, lovely time. My sister takes images to share on Instagram. And before those images go up on Instagram, what does she do?
Edits them.
Edit them. It goes straight into a photo editor. She edits them on the fly, then uploads them, then filters them, then puts them up. Are those images an accurate representation of what is going on?
No.
Does that matter?
No.
No. It doesn't matter at all, because as Tiedenberg and others have noted, there is nothing real about Instagram. It is a platform which encourages us to distort the real, to create something which fits with a particular view of the world instead of it being real. Taking the photo is never the end of the process. The filter is now ubiquitous. I still find it incredibly weird putting filters on things. I don't get it. But that's me. I don't operate in this world. That's why I'm not included in your round of applause, because this is not me. The filter in itself adds layers of meaning to the image. It adds a huge amount of meaning to what's going on. So we go to places for the gram, and we have basically created a whole set of new visual genres for communicating. Instagram has promoted new roles in society. Okay, this is a question that I always ask, and nobody is going to answer this truthfully. Is there anyone in this room who wants to be an influencer?
Oh, that's it.
2, why not?
I think it could have like on mental health.
Yeah, but sweet money.
I simply don't have the time and the